All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back for part two of the OrthoFi Practice Performance Masterclass. Following up Dr. Jamie Reynolds, we're going to get right into it. And we're going to start with a little bit of a review. Aware that some of you may not have seen the presentation we did back in December. And in order to really get the point of what we're talking about, a little bit of background will be helpful if you didn't see the first part of the presentation. So in part one, what I explained is that my brain works like this mess of stuff on the page. And in part one, we talked about some of the things that are important in our practice, the number of visits to complete treatment, how that impacts our daily clinical schedule and our annual schedule. How we build these schedules and how we work with our assistants clinically. Not only how we build the schedule, but the reality of it versus the flow of it, and when patients come in, and how do we manage that. But the focus was also on how we look at starts in the practice and starts per day. And the more starts we do per day, the more our production is, and or maybe the fewer days we need to work. So that was the focus of part one. And we talked about clinical efficiency and what does it mean to be clinically efficient. And my key metric number one, which is my efficiency metric, was the number of visits to complete treatment. So how many visits on average does it take you in your practice to complete treatment across all appointment type or procedure types, or by individual, braces, aligners, phase one early treatment? And my goal in my practice is to average 12 visits across the board. But not only that, 12 visits for bracket and wire treatment. And this is my key metric number one, which is our treatment efficiency metric. And I think if you really think about it, the number of visits that it takes us to complete treatment is all the work we have to do as orthodontists. So if you can reduce the number of visits to complete treatment, then you have less work to do for every start that you do, which is how most of us measure our practices, starts or production, right? So if you have a given number of starts and you can finish treatment in 10 appointments, you have a lot less work to do than the practice that takes 100 appointments to finish treatment. And that leads us into key metric number two from part one, which is my production metric, which is starts per day. So how many days a year do you work? If you don't know how many days a year you work, you probably should. The answer shouldn't be I work 4 days a week. It should be my goal is to work X number of days a year. And then basically you divide the number of starts by the number of days a year you work, and that's your starts per day. And the reason why 12 visits is so important is because we figured out that 12 visits allows us to do one start per day per assistant in the clinic. And as we started the practice, it was one assistant, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And so now our goal is to do 6 starts per day times 180 days of the year that we're in the office, and that'll be over 1,000 starts. And that comes out of treatment efficiency, number of visits to complete treatment. So now, 5 minutes in, we are on to part two. So back to this mad scientist brain thought here. We covered the bottom part. Now we're going to cover the top part, which is how does the number of visits to complete treatment impact your clinical efficiency? Where do mechanics play into that? A big thing for a lot of docs is, well, it'd be great to be efficient with treatment, but I can't get my patients, I have poor patient compliance with elastics, with hygiene, with appointments. And so we're going to talk about motivation, is what we call it in our office, participation, and give some examples of what's in it for the patient. And so you'll see this as we go through the presentation here. But first, let's start with the origin story of OrthoFi, because this is really the foundation of how we're able to do what we do in our practice. And if I must be honest, the origin story of OrthoFi is Jamie Reynolds and myself really late one night at the Ormco Forum in 2013, drawing some stuff out on a cocktail napkin. And it came from the question that we continually got. At that point in time, both of us were lecturing on different versions of faster, more effective treatment. The focus at that time was insignia and computer designed, customized braces and wires, which was very effective in reducing the number of appointments and reducing treatment times. But what we kept getting is like we'd do a lecture and we'd come back from the lecture and we'd present for 8 straight hours. And then at the very end, someone would come up and go, "That's great. So you can do treatment faster, but patients aren't going to pay for it. Or how are you going to get them to pay for it?" And so late one night with a couple of cocktails, Jamie and I said, an orthodontic financing company that would help us solve these problems. And really, if we're going to describe the problem, it comes out of the traditional model. And I'm old enough to go back to way back in the model, which is patients pay over treatment time. And in fact, if you go way back in the model, part of why we saw patients every month was because they had a payment to make every month. So 15 years ago, in orthodontic mechanical educational lectures, I was answering questions like, "So you're going to extend appointments to like 8 to 10 weeks? Well, then how are patients going to pay?" And I said, I guess I don't get the question. No, I mean, like when they come in every month is when they drop off their check for $300. So how are they going to pay? I'm like, I don't know, mail it in on the monthly payment. So for those of you out there who have as much gray hair as I do, you'll remember a time where appointments were monthly because payments were monthly. And to a large extent, treatment took as long as it took for payments. So back in the day, we would have, a fee and you'd put X amount down and you'd pay X amount a month for 24 months. That's just the way it always was. And it was like you had 2 treatment options, pay in full, or the other option we have, which is 25% down and the rest equally over 24 months. And so when you come from that traditional model of patients paying over treatment time, it's easy to understand why we got the question. And the question is, with treatment times reducing, how will patients afford to pay for treatment? And the question kept taking us aback because we were already separating treatment time and finances. And so patients could pay over 30 months when a treatment time was 18 months. But what docs were asking is they'd say, well, no, but if you used to do 24 months and now you do 18 months, then their payments are going to be over 18 months. And so their monthly payment is going to go up, or they're going to have to put more down. Fewer people are going to be able to afford it. And our case acceptance, which was the old metric for determining success in patients deciding to do treatment with your practice, and case acceptance would go down because it would be an onerous financial circumstance for the patient. But that assumes that that payments must equal the treatment time. And there's a couple of hypotheses here. One is that patients won't pay for treatment, or continue to pay for treatment, I should say, if treatment is done before the payments are completed. And a secondary hypothesis is, well, what if I tell them 24 months and I finish in 18? Are patients going to ask me for a refund, because it didn't take you 24 months? And, I typically have answered with a joke, no, we're not going to charge you more for finishing earlier. But to the first point, if you assume that payments must equal treatment time and we're going to shorten treatment time, then I can understand why that would negatively impact how patients pay for treatment. So what we really focused on, the challenge here is that our profession was having difficulty conceptualizing the decoupling of treatment time and finances. And so what we realized is that we were already decoupling it, but we felt there might still be some risk out there. And we felt there was a lot of questions from the profession, doubts from the profession as to whether that could be successful. And so really the goal for us was, look, we're orthodontists. We want to focus on treatment. We want to provide the best results we can in the least amount of time and the fewest appointments. But then who's going to watch our finances? And that's where OrthoFi was created. And with OrthoFi, And obviously Jamie covers a lot of this beautifully in his presentation, but from the new patient forms to being able to know that insurance forms and health history forms are completed before the patient comes in, to have some insight into what is important for them, quality, efficiency, clear, et cetera. All those things on the front end, but the insurance and then managing the financials on the back end. And Jamie covers the aspect of what happens if you finish treatment in 18 months and the patient is paying over 30. Do they continue to pay? And the answer is, for the most part, yes, they do. And that's why OrthoFi has been really valuable for us in the growth of our practices. But that was the origin story and the hypothesis of why we wanted to figure out a way to help have somebody manage the finances in our practice so that we could focus on our treatment. So in decoupling of treatment and finances, the orthodontist can focus on treatment and OrthoFi will focus on your finances. Now it leads me to key metric number 3, which is what I'm going to call the happiness metric. So cheers to that. It is treatment time. And it's a topic that's really not often discussed in our profession. If you go to a mechanical lecture, we're going to talk about how we did step by step to get to the result. And in the end, patients want shorter treatment. Patients are happier with shorter treatment. I have to believe that all doctors are happier with shorter treatment. Teams are happier with shorter treatment. And if you take the first 2 key metrics into account, which is the number of visits to complete treatment and the number of starts that you do per day, then treatment time is the logical 3rd leg of this stool. So with regards to treatment time, I would suggest that there are 2 main things to consider with respect to treatment time. So I'm theorizing here. Number 1 is the overall relative length of treatment. Like, how long are patients going to be in treatment? And I think we can all agree that generally patients would prefer less treatment time over more. Like if you just said to a patient, you can have treatment for 12 months or you can have treatment for 24 months. And assuming we're going to have the same exceptional outcome, every patient would pick 12 months. Of course, unless they were financially constrained and had to finance it over 12 months, and they might say, ooh, I'll take the 24-month option if I get longer to pay for it. But the second thing about treatment time that is often missed, and some of you have heard me talk about this in other presentations, is how the actual treatment time compares to what was estimated for the start. So are we living up to our patients' expectations? If we're telling them it's going to take 24 months, does it actually take 24 months to finish treatment? And I'm going to start with a tip here. And my tip is please, please, please don't give a range for treatment time for a number of reasons. If you're on OrthoFi, then doing a range for treatment time makes it questionable for your scheduling coordinator, your treatment coordinator, on what's our payment arrangement going to start with. But here's the real reason. I know for the first, 5, 6, 7 years of my career, we were taught, tell them 18 to 24 months because it's in a range and they know it's a range. And if you're over, it's no big deal. And if you're a little bit under, no one's going to ask for money back, which happens really infrequently, by the way. And the problem with 18 to 24 months is the patient hears 18 months. And the doctor and the team use 24 months and they enter that into their software. And this actually happened yesterday in our office, because we don't give a range for patients that are ready. But when we are seeing recall evaluations that are going to be ready in a year or a year and a half, where you don't know exactly where everything's going to grow in, the parent asked me, how long do you think Susie's going to be in braces for when she's ready? And I said, it's a little bit hard to tell now, but looking at the trajectory of the way the teeth are developing, I'm guessing it's about 18 to 24 months. And mom looks right at Susie and says, did you hear that? You only need 18 months of braces. And it was really, for me, confirmation of this range. The patient is going to hear the least and the doctor is going to use the most. And that is setting us up for fail. So #fail. we'll talk about a little bit of terminology here. So terminology, we have two things we start with. One is estimated treatment time. And for a lot of us in the profession, we've used either EDC or ECD, depending on who your consultant was. And so you have a patient in treatment, and we'll say the EDC, the estimated date of completion, is January 26th or January 28th, 2022, based on what the treatment time was. And the ECD is the same thing, estimated completion date, estimated date of completion, estimated completion date. But when you're looking at it on the front end, it's an estimated treatment time, because until they actually start, you don't know what the completion date would be. But what we often don't talk about in the profession is ATT, or actual treatment time. How long did it actually take us to do what we said we would do? And right now, and I've presented this before, the industry averages for braces, and I'm just focusing on braces here because quite honestly, there's a lot of questions in the aligner market about what does that mean for a quality of result. So a lot of orthodontists, I think, will say that's great. You're treating with aligners, but you're treating them to a lower quality result. So I'm focusing on braces because generally speaking, I think many of us are aiming for the same kind of quality outcome for our patients. So the average, these numbers come from Gauge, and the average estimated treatment time across the United States is 24 months, but the average active treatment time is 27 months. And by the way, that's over 19 visits. So the average ETT is 24 months. The average actual is 27 months, which means on average, we are missing what we promise our patients by 3 months. Now, yes, of course, we have some patients that are 20 months over because they went MIA and didn't wear their elastics or whatever else. But that means on average, we are not living up to the expectations we've set for ourselves and our patients. And so I would argue the two sides of treatment time are both out of alignment. I think on average, our treatment time in the profession is too long. 27 months is too long for the average patient to be in treatment. And for those of us that are concerned about our profession and the longevity of our profession, and who may have kids who want to be orthodontists in our profession, this is a concern, right? Averaging 27 months for braces. And it's opening the door for direct to consumer, because it's 27 months and 20 visits to the office. Like, who's got time for that? And so we should be looking at reducing our treatment time across the profession. And technology, bracket systems, wires, elastics, early light elastics, and we'll talk a little bit about that in this presentation. But secondarily, we're not living up to our promises. You know, I'd be less critical here if the estimated treatment time was 27 months and on average we were finishing patients on time. I would just have the first one to discuss. But the second part is we're not really living up to our promises that we make patients. So for me, this is a double fail. And I think our profession can and should be looking for ways to reduce the overall treatment time. And say what you want about different appliance systems, et cetera, but if there are docs out there that are regularly treating patients in 18 months, then maybe you should listen to what they have to say in terms of their treatment mechanics. All right. So why is treatment time important in the first place? I mean, what does it even matter? There's a whole bunch of things we're going to cover in this presentation, but I would argue that all patients prefer shorter treatment times. I already mentioned that. But here's my hypothesis on this, is that shorter treatment times yield happier patients, which equals more patient referrals, right? Can you imagine the patient who's being dragged through 18 months beyond when they thought they were going to get their braces off, because what they see is their teeth are straight, but there's still 2.735 millimeters of overjet that we're trying to fix with elastics, and they don't understand why they're wearing rubber bands, and they're not wearing rubber bands, and they're over treatment time. Do you think those patients are going to refer patients to your practice? I don't know. Probably not. If you're judging the referrals based on the quality of the result, meaning like ABO standard quality, scores on every patient, the truth is that's highly unrealistic And first of all, and second of all, patients aren't going to notice. In fact, a lot of the time our referring doctors don't notice. Now, let me be really clear here. I am not in any way advocating for giving our patients less than the best we're capable of giving them, not even a little bit. What I'm suggesting is that patients who finish on time and in a relatively short amount of treatment are going to be happier and are going to refer more of their friends and family members. Oh, one more thing on that. Estimating 12 months for everybody and then finishing in 20 months, estimating 12 to get patients in the door and then finishing in 20 is another hashtag fail, because patients will realize that you're not living up to the expectations. And we regularly see patients that come into our office with a sibling treated in another office that said, well, they told us X and they finished in Y. And we were really frustrated. It was a lot of visits that they didn't live up to what we expected it was going to take to finish treatment. So happier patients equal more patient referrals. But what I would say is this, is shorter treatment times yield better motivation of the patients and better oral hygiene. I mean, if you don't have to be in practice long to see hygiene decline over the length of treatment time and motivation decline over the length of treatment time, which is why I think early light elastics are so powerful. And we'll talk about this more a little bit later, but if you have a patient who's excited about braces the day they start and you give them elastics to wear, they're going to wear them better than the patient who's 12 months into treatment and their teeth are straight, like this young lady in the picture. She's a beautiful young lady, beautiful smile. From this view, can anyone tell if she has ideal overjet or 3 millimeters of overjet? I don't think you can. I think if she's taking a selfie to post on Instagram or Facebook, or she's doing a TikTok video, I don't think 1 extra millimeter of overjet matters. Again, I'm not advocating for crappy results. What I'm saying is patients who are motivated and are in the enthusiastic stage of orthodontics are going to be better participators. And better elastic wearers, more motivation equals shorter treatment times, and the cycle continues. So shorten your treatment times, patients are happier, they're going to do more of what you ask them. By doing more of what you ask them, they're going to shorten their treatment times, and everybody ends up happier. But now on to living up to our promises. So do you remember this? I've talked about this ad nauseum for, oh goodness, almost 15 years. This is my D-band spreadsheet. It's simple. Every month you go in and you put in the date, the patient name, treatment type if you even want, braces, aligners, estimated and actual treatment time, number of visits, and some other things. And there's only been literally a handful of people who I know who have gone back and done this in their practices. Chris Feldman, I'm going to give you a shout out, because you, my friend, have gone back and said, I thought I knew what I was doing and I didn't. And then I focused on this, and my team and I, and now we're down to like half of the number of visits we were 3 years ago. This is easy, but nobody does it. Literally tracking the number of appointments it takes you to finish treatment and tracking what your estimated and actual treatment time are. So you could do this. It's a simple spreadsheet. One of your team members could do it, and then look at it and see if you can improve on what you're already doing. But for this part of the presentation, the key here is estimated versus actual. And I would argue that ETT and ATT on average in your practice should be equal. We should finish equal number of patients ahead of time as we finish over time. And while I'm not an avid golfer and was never a very good one, for those golfers out there, if you were to take let's say a 9-iron and try to hit the ball 150 yards, and I gave you 100 shots to do it, what percentage of the time would you hit the ball under or over 150 yards? It'd be 50. So shouldn't we be aiming at least for 50% of our patients to finish on time while 50% finish overtime? And I did a study of a number of docs not too long ago, and I asked the hypothetical question, what percentage of time should we finish our patients within the amount of time that we estimate? And the answer across this group of docs was 77% of the time, 77. which I would love to be at, but I think if somebody who's not overestimating their treatment time is finishing 77% of their patients on time, then please call me, text me. My cell number is 860-287-2688. Text me, and I will be on the next available plane to come to your office and visit, because that's amazing. Estimated to actual, my goal is to have these on average across the practice. Now, let me be clear, it doesn't mean every single patient we treat has to finish on time. It means that we're going to have some that finish under 150 yards and some that finish over, but blended, we don't want more patients in that over treatment time category because of all the negative effects it has on our practice, which I will cover over the next hour or so of this presentation. And so for transparency, I'll show you this. These are literally the numbers for our 2020 Cos Ortho totals, okay? Remember, this is the year of COVID, and in Connecticut, we were shut down for 10 weeks and then had some regulations on aerosol generating procedures. So we effectively did 3 months of no D-bands, no braces off, or attachments removed, almost 3 months. So we had 842 treatment finishes in 2020. And our average estimated treatment time was 17.5, right? Remember, the national average is 24. Our average actual treatment time was 18.3. So we only missed by less than a month in the year of COVID, where we had 3 months that we couldn't see patients. We had an almost zero COVID effect. Some of that was doing some virtual appointments. Some of that was the mechanics we employ and the use of early light elastics. The ones that it really affected, obviously, were the ones who were supposed to get their braces off on March 22nd and couldn't get their braces off until June 15th, right? That's a 3-month delay that I had nothing I could do about. There's no way around that in the state of Connecticut. Our average visits, 12.3. Remember, I said our goal was 12. We're behind that, but we're close. And here's a number. I mean, all this other stuff on the bottom here, OTC, and I'm saving that for a lecture for another time, because those are some new metrics I have around what we should be doing to live up to our patients' expectations. But this OTC means on-time completion. It means, did we finish this patient within the amount of time we estimated? And I want to be specific on this. If I started them on January 1st and I said 12 months and they finish on January 2nd, they're over treatment time, OTT. So on-time completion means within exactly the day to the month that we had estimated they would. And so, you know, Dr. Mike and I have had a focus on this in our practice for a couple of years now. I may have mentioned in the last webinar, I forget now, but we, for literally 18 months, kept a notebook in the clinic and wrote down every patient that was over treatment time, okay? And then we would, at the end of the day, we would talk about it. If he saw patients, he'd ask me, why was this over treatment time? Well, it took longer for the sevens to erupt. Okay, is that the patient's fault? Should we have waited to start? Should we have estimated longer? You know, it took longer for the patient to go and get surgical exposure of a canine because of insurance issues. Great, that's not our fault, but they're still over treatment time. So because we focused on that, we've raised this up to over 50%, which I'm very proud of. And while on the surface it sounds low, I would encourage you to go back and look at, if you're going to do the D-band spreadsheet for the last month or two, and look at what percentage of your patients finish on time. I think everybody who doesn't track it will be surprised when they do. And I'll leave it at that. Okay, so how do we get actual treatment time to equal estimated treatment time on average? And the easiest way, by the way, is to tell everybody 100 months. But then nobody would start in your practice because no one wants that long in treatment. So we've got to do this. Here's the challenge, team. We've got to do this not by overestimating our treatment time, but by over delivering in both mechanics and motivation. And I'm going to tell a quick story about overestimating. A good friend of mine, very good orthodontist, doesn't like to let patients down. He might be the only guy on the planet. I'm not going to use your name, but you'll know who you are if you're watching this. He might be the only guy on the planet who regularly finishes ahead of treatment time because he overestimates everybody by 6 to 9 months, at which point he leaves the consult and his treatment coordinator says, don't worry, it's not really going to take 30 months. He'll have you done in like 21 to 24 months. But I posed the question to him, do you think there's a possibility you're losing patients in your practice because you said 30 months and 2 other orthodontists said 18 to 21 months? I don't know, maybe, maybe not. But overestimating, I don't think helps us either. And I've seen overestimation in practices where the patient maybe has, they're doing internal financing. The patient has questionable credit, if they do credit scores, or questionable ability to pay. So the doctor will say 36 months, which gives the TC 36 months to allow the patient to pay to try and make the finances work, even though the treatment is probably only going to take 18 to 24 months. Another situation where OrthoFi would be very helpful for you. But anyway, back to the mechanics and motivation. So why are we over treatment time in the first place? And I'm going to hypothesize 5 things, with one of them being a hypothesis. First one is mechanics and becoming a master clinician. Second one is motivation and talking about participation versus compliance. Third one is making progress during treatment. Stop kicking the can down the road. Fourth one is minimize appointment intervals. And the 5th one is decoupling treatment times and finances. So let's roll. Mechanics. Mechanics, in my opinion, are the #1 key to efficient and effective treatment. And included in mechanics is not just how you set up your treatment plan and your elastics, it's how you put brackets on, bracket placement, whether it's direct bond or indirect bond. And people know it's important. That's why a lot of people have gone to indirect bonding over the years. My challenge with indirect bonding is I saw higher bond failures. So there was more appointments, which didn't allow me to serve both masters of efficient mechanics and fewer appointments. So right now, we're going to take a short break from our regularly scheduled business meeting to show you some examples of clinical efficiency. All right? Didn't think you were going to see a clinical example in this, huh? I fooled you guys. So what do? This situation came up a few years ago. Simon, I know the mom. They were a Pfizer family who was in the area here before Pfizer pulled everybody out of our area. But thank you, Pfizer, for a COVID vaccine. We appreciate that. At Simon's new patient exam, his mother let us know that the family was being transferred back to England in 4 months. And because she's British and had her orthodontics done there by a dentist, she was confident that Simon would have 4 teeth extracted. And she said, oh my, I want to get in. I want you to see what you can do. So here was Simon on February 20th of 2017. Clinical, class 1, moderate crowding, blocked out canines. In no day of my life is this an extraction case. But I can see where mom's talking about it. I think there's some people that might consider upper buys in this case to bring the canines down. I'm not going to argue whether it's an extraction case or not. What I want to discuss on the decision time is, given the mom's concern, should we start now? 4 months you got. Should we start and transfer? Or should we say, you know what? It doesn't really make sense to start your treatment now. Why don't you move to England and let them figure it out? We decided to start. This was our treatment plan. Literally, we're going to start. And I know I can get Simon to the point where no one is going to consider extractions for him. But I'm going to ask you this. What's your treatment estimate for this case? Okay. My treatment estimate was 15 months. If there was no story about Simon moving, I would have estimated 15 months. So because we had some decisions to make and we had to figure it out, the family didn't same day start, but started the next day, which is fine. Braces are on, low torque upper anterior, started some triangle elastics. In retrospect, given the mild class 2 in this case, I would have started shorty class 2s instead, from the lower 5 to the upper 3. But because I only have 4 months, are we going to go on 10 to 12 week intervals, folks? No. We're going to see him back in the least amount of time we think we can to make a wire change. So 4 weeks later, we saw him back. You can see the canines came down, but now you can also see why I should have started the vertical elastic with a slight class 2. So that's 4 weeks for my man Simon. We saw him April 26th at 8 weeks. Canines are down, by the way, sorry. We started class 2 elastics here, light, long class 2 elastics from the lower 6 to the upper 3. Class 2 is mostly corrected 4 weeks later. We're only 8 weeks into treatment here, everybody. At 13 weeks, June 7th, Mom says, we're moving at the end of the month. We're going to be out of here by 4th of July. What should we do? I said, well, it's clear no one is going to extract teeth on Simon now. She goes, it's clear to me that his teeth look really good. Can we finish treatment before he goes? So how about starting and finish in 4 months? 4 months of treatment, 16 weeks, 6/28, 17, we got his braces off. Apparently he stopped brushing between the 3 weeks before that. But listen, folks, that is more than an acceptable result in 4 months of treatment with 4 appointments, bonding, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 5 appointments, sorry, okay, for the D-band. So does seeing something like this, in the face of adversity, change your ideas on treatment times, on appliance type, passive self-ligation, on appointment intervals? We saw him every 4 weeks and 3 weeks at the end for the D-band before they moved at the beginning of July. I think it might. Remember, I would have estimated 15 months in that, and I probably would have gone 10 weeks in the first wire, 10 weeks in the second wire, 8 weeks in the third wire, so we're at 28 weeks for a pan and repo. By the way, we didn't do a pan and repo in this case. And then 8 weeks, so we're at 35. I mean, you're at a year by the time you even get into your finishing wires. And we avoided all that by great bracket placement, great mechanics, and the effective use of early light elastics. All right, so we're going to go on to a tougher one. And this case is fun for me because you got my man here, initial visit, class 3. He is in, I've asked this question, been asked this question in lectures. Is he posturing forward? I will show you the TMJ series in a minute. No, he's in centric relation. Upper 3s aren't erupted yet. And he had 2 previous orthodontic consults, and both of them recommended 4x extraction and jaw surgery, okay? Full step class 3, not making this stuff up. Pan, Ceph, A and B -5. Wait, this is a business lecture, isn't it? Anyway, we're going to show how this comes into play. Look at his TMJ series, folks. The TMJ is well seated. The condyle is well seated in the fossa. He would be forward on the articular eminence if he was posturing forward. So my questions are, do you start now? Yes or no? Is surgery indicated? Yes or no? Would you do extractions? Yes or no? And can we correct the class 3 without surgery or extractions? Yes or no? So I'm going to give everybody a minute. I want you to commit to this. I'm going to give you like 30 seconds. Would you start now? Would you do surgery? Would you extract teeth? There's the Ceph. Okay. You can still think about that because I want you to commit to it. Here's the notes from our new patient exam in the software. Mom called to schedule a new patient exam. She's looking for a doctor's opinion, mine, on her son's underbite. Mom said they had been to Dr. Blank, and both of us suggested to pull a couple of teeth and do surgery. Patient has had surgeries in the past. Patient has Husky insurance, which in Connecticut is Medicaid. And mom is aware that we don't participate. The other offices did. This is my scheduling coordinator. I explained to mom about our easy financial options and low down payment. So you could argue that mom could have had free treatment with Husky Insurance at 2 other offices, or have paid full treatment with us, you could argue that our treatment plan was different. We weren't going to extract and we weren't going to do surgery, but I would argue that OrthoFi, enabling us to make a flexible financial arrangement, allowed a patient who had otherwise no need to pay for treatment to choose an option that she thought was best for her son in the office that she thought was best for her son and make it work. So here's the fun story about this case. I posted this case on a popular Facebook group. And I asked, please tell me how you would treat this case. Greater than 80% of the orthodontists with more than 100 replying said they would extract teeth. And greater than 50% they said they would do surgery. 20%, a full 1 in 5 orthodontists said that they wouldn't even treat now. They would wait for the growth to be done and then start orthodontics and do surgery. And I'm like, are you kidding me? If this was your son, you wouldn't try and do something now? Less than 10% of people said they would do it non-extraction and non-surgical. Less than 10% said they would do it non-extraction and non-surgical. Our plan was non-extraction and non-surgical. Upper and lower braces, and I'm not going to belabor the mechanics in this case, but the key here is lower incisor turbos, early light elastics, passive self-ligation, enhanced compliance / participation, as we call it. So mechanics, class 3 elastics, tongue is going to help us, believe it or not here, turbos, lower anteriors, and here he is 8 weeks later. Positive overjet, class 1, neutral profile, canines erupting. It's pretty cool. So I posted these photos separately on the same popular Facebook group, but I waited 9 to 10 months to do it. And I said, help, I have some questions. How long is it going to take me to finish? Would you consider extractions or surgery for this patient? And I had, again, over 100 responses because it's a very active group and a very good group. 0% said extractions, 0% said surgery. And the average was 9 months to finish treatment from here. Basically, the treatment plan was bond the upper 3s as soon as you can, bring them down, settle the bite, and you're done. Bond the upper 7s, whatever. That would have been a total of 11 months in treatment, non-extraction, non-surgically, in a patient that 80% of people said extractions and 50% surgery. And 1 in 5 would have waited till he was 18 and done orthodontics and surgery. So does this change your ideas on treatment times, appliance type, and early light elastics? If it doesn't, maybe you should attend some courses. All right, I'm not going to belabor this. Bond upper 3s, put some triangle elastics in, bring them down, bond the upper 7s. Panarepo. At the Panarepo, you can see we're still working on the torque of the upper anterior. Oh my goodness, are we going to blow the roots of the upper anterior teeth through the buccal-cortical plate? No, we're not. But the low torque brackets are going to help us upright those anterior teeth. And here we are, and we, believe it or not, to help finishing the uprighting, we actually did a little bit of lower IPR and started him on class 2 elastics to help with the uprighting. I can't see what adjustment this is because my little thing for Zoom is right there. Looking pretty good to me. We decided to hold him in stabilized in stainless steel wires for another few months. And here he finished in 16 months. It could have been done way earlier than that. We made him upper and lower clear retainers and a Damon splint. And he still looks great. So look at that, nice upright anterior teeth, beautiful profile. So when I'm teaching mechanics lectures, my 5 tips for efficient mechanics and shorter treatment times are: number 1, place the brackets with the end in mind. Get really, really good at your bracket placement if it's direct bond. If it's indirect bond, make sure your techs are really, really good at bracket placement. Number 2, use turbos and early light elastics. You will get the best elastic wear when patients are fresh, in treatment, and motivated, not when they're tired and burned out and their teeth are straight and they're ready to be done. Number 3, do everything you can at each visit. Number 4, shorten your intervals between visits, and I'm going to talk about this later. And number 5, motivate the patients to participate, which comes now. Motivation, participation versus compliance. Our profession has a problem. We call it compliance. I can't get Johnny to comply with what I say. Well, if your patients know what's in it for them, and you ask for participation and you engage them, they will comply. So motivation is my number 2 key to efficient and effective treatment. And I'm going to suggest we change the name, we change the game. So let's stop calling it compliance orthodontists and let's start calling it participation. And to get participation, you need motivation. You need to motivate patients, primarily kids, sometimes adults who don't wear their aligners, but adults are on their own. So, what is the primary cause of finishing overestimated treatment time? And I guarantee you, if you in your practice listen to what Dr. Mike and I did for a couple of years and keep a notebook of every patient that's over treatment time, notebook of every patient over treatment time for a period of time, you're going to start this notebook out saying, patient missed appointments, patient didn't wear their elastics, patient had poor oral hygiene. And as you become more self-aware, you're going to realize my administrative systems could have been better to keep these patients from missing appointments. My engagement and interaction with my patients could have been better to encourage them to wear their elastics and understand what's in it for them. My treatment times could have been shorter so I don't burn patients out. Anyway, I asked the pragmatic ortho clinical discussions, when a patient finishes overestimated treatment time with braces, I wanted to leave aligners out because obviously when they finish over, it's because they're not wearing their aligners. But in braces, what in your opinion is most often the main cause? And 87%, so I added poor compliance, 87% of people said it was a patient's responsibility. And 10% said it was poor mechanics or the bracket placement or some kind of office responsibility. And someone added in multifactorial, which doesn't answer the most often, right? Yeah, duh, it's multifactorial. I mean, it could be some compliance, some mechanics, and whatever. A couple of people agreed with extended appointment intervals, which we're going to see in a little bit. Apparently, 3% of the reason for the main cause of over treatment time is cheap power chain. That's what somebody said. So if cheap power chain is your problem, I suggest you find a different vendor or spend a couple of extra bucks on good power chain so none of your patients go over treatment time. But here's the deal. Here's what I find every time I ask. 80% of people say it's the patient's fault, and 20% of people say we could be better. How about delayed eruption? That's not the patient's fault. We could have estimated better or started later. How about no one even mentioned improper treatment estimate? Like no one has ever seen a patient that has had, you said one thing and you're like, I should have said another because I missed this. Anyway, what you're going to find when you start keeping these notebooks, and I hope somebody does, Feldman, would you be the only guy who does this and then minimizes your treatment time? Keep a notebook, because what you're going to find is it's actually the other way. Half of the poor compliance on appointments is our administrative team could have better systems, and more than half. And most of our patients not wearing rubber bands is we failed to reach them. And in today's world, where kids are on Zoom all the time, like how about not leaving their parents in the car? How about having their parents in the clinic with us and get down on your knee next to them in the chair, and say, hey man, I care about you. I want you to get done with your treatment. You got to do this for you. You'll be doing it for me and for your mom, but do it for you. Like, give a shit, folks, okay? So don't blame everything on our patients' poor compliance. And how about getting them to participate? And here's a really wise statement from Dr. Tim Truelove, director of the ABO. And he said, reducing patients over treatment time is controllable. It's the mentality of most orthodontists to continue treatment even when the chances of the type of outcome you want is not attainable. We need to be able to recognize these situations and treat accordingly to an acceptable result. Tim, thank you. We need to be able to recognize these situations and treat accordingly to an acceptable result. So just because a kid's not wearing his rubber bands at 24 months in treatment, what makes you think he's going to wear them at 36 months in a treatment? We need to be able to get a good result, the best we can for that patient. So part of this is what's in it for the patient. How do you engage them, motivate them, coach them? I tell patients when they come in for a new patient exam, I go, listen, I'm gonna be really honest. The third thing I do is being an orthodontist. The third. That's my job. That's the third thing I do. Number one is I am a teacher. I'm going to teach you and your family what's important for us to correct with your teeth and your bite. Number two, I am a coach. I am going to coach you along the way in what we need to accomplish for your treatment, how we're going to get to the end result. Number three, I'm the orthodontist that's going to do the brackets and wires. I can't do the third part without you understanding and without you being motivated to be part of this process. So we're going to go through some jibber jabber here. So step one, we say things like, hey man, our job is the braces and wires. Your job is the elastics. That's all you got to do. Oh, maybe brush once in a while. Okay. Our job is braces. Your job is the elastics. Sometimes I'll throw in, mom's job is to pay for it and bring you here. So you got it. You got one. She's got to pay for it and bring you here. I got to do all the braces, man. All you got to do is wear some rubber bands. Or I'll say, listen, honey, you have a beautiful smile. It's going to get even more beautiful as your teeth get straight and your overbite is corrected. So here's the deal. The braces will make your teeth straighter and the elastics will correct your overbite. And my friends, this is the power of early light elastics. Because as they see their teeth getting straighter, they get enthusiastic to be participating in your treatment. So if you go back to what I was taught in school and level in a line and get everything with an overjet and then pull heavy elastics, no one is going to wear their elastics. That's why you have compliance problems. But if they see their teeth straightening and their bite correcting, which most of the time, as we all know, they don't care about, we see their bite correcting, if their bite is correcting while their teeth are getting straighter and they think the elastics are making their teeth straighter, we win. So then we get to step two when we're in the clinic on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being 24 hours a day. How would you grade yourself with your elastic wear? And this is something my clinical team asks at every appointment when somebody is wearing elastics. And I would argue that 95% of our active patients are wearing elastics when they're in braces. And then patient goes, like a 6. And you go, dude, if you get a 6 out of 10 on your exam, what grade is that? And they go, a D. You go, exactly. You are getting a D. You are almost failing your elastic wear. We can do better. Come on. Then you look at the parent, because by the way, everybody, you have parents in the clinic, I hope. And if you don't, you should. COVID aside, they're coming in with their kids. They're all wearing masks. Put them in the clinic and let them see how we sterilize and care for and communicate and educate with our patients. You want to see your practice grow? Engage the parents. And then you look at the parent and you go, hey, how is this knucklehead here doing with his rubber bands? On a score of 1 to 10. And the parent goes, really? No, it's not a 6. It's not a 6. It's like, come on, Johnny, be honest, like a 2. You never wear those things. And it opens it up for you to have a conversation. And to support the, come on, Johnny, listen to your mom. She does everything in this world for you. You need to do this for yourself. So we convert their grade into hours per day and then do some math. So listen, man, you are 12 months into treatment and we thought it was going to take 18 months. So 18 minus 12 is 6. So you have about 6 months left if everything goes perfectly. If you wear your elastics 24 hours a day, you can have your braces off in 6 months. By the way, folks, we know this because of our experience in our office of communicating this and taking photos at every visit. So by the way, if your elastics are only in for 12 hours a day, which is probably like a D grade, then it'll take 12 months. So 6 months at 24 hours a day is 12 months at 12 hours a day, or 1 year. And then you look at mom and you go, by the way, this is our math lesson for the day, okay? I know we're all in virtual school, but we're doing some math over here. So if you wear your rubber band 6 hours a day, then it'll take 24 months. Now, we all know it's not quite that linear, but it makes it linear in the kids' minds. So do you want to get your braces off, I don't know, like 6 months, like we said, or you want to be stuck in these damn things for 2 more years? And yes, occasionally, in the right circumstance, I will swear to get the motivation where I want it to be. You want to be stuck in these stupid things for 2 more years? It's your choice. 6 hours a day is 24 months. 24 hours a day is 6 months. Folks, we can change the name and change the game and make compliance become participation through motivation. Motivate, coach the heck out of these kids. They need it. They're struggling. They're on Zoom calls. They never go to school anymore. There's no socialization. I mean, be a shining light in their lives, please. So the question though is how do we know how long it will actually take to finish treatment? There's a number of ways. One, remember I said we keep those little notebooks? So we've been really focused on not going over treatment time, but really it comes down to digital photography. This is our fleet of cameras on the clinic counter before we start our day. And yes, we take photos at every visit. I think it should be an ABO thing. I'm just saying, like, models before and after do nothing. Photos at every visit, you can learn a lot from that. How is it more efficient? How about this? Hire a new clinical assistant and let her look at the photos of every appointment for a patient when they're sitting in the chair, so she can see where we started and where we're going at each visit. Enhances communication with patient and parent, motivation, and referring dentists. You ever get a call like, hey, Johnny's got a spot on number 2. You go, hey, I got the photos from last week. It was there before. Visual confirmation of treatment progress. Great way to show elastic wear. And the administrative team. So I'm going to argue that a photo is worth 1,000,000 words, okay? I'm just checking my time here. Yeah, we might run over a little bit, but we'll be okay. What do you guys see in this photo? This is a photo. First of all, this is someone taking a photo of someone taking a photo of Dr. Anil Adikula, the Dr. Anil Adikula, who was on stage at a conference with a photo on the screen of himself taking a selfie of himself and a friend, being me, out to lunch in Denver when we were on our way to a ski trip. And my son, whose nose you see down by AI's foot, is wearing his goggles on a 70-degree day in the sun because he wants to work on his goggle pan, right? My point here is there's a lot going on in this photo. What's going on in this photo? Patient calls about a space. Admin can answer and go, yeah, that space was there at the last visit. We'll fix it next time. How was I supposed to wear my elastics? Here, let me email you the photo. All right, there's your elastics. Oh, my wire's broken between the last 2 teeth. That's because we clipped it there at the last appointment. Don't worry, you don't have to come in for an appointment. You can make notes on the photos. In our office, every assistant and TC have their own camera with their nickname on it. Jamu, whenever you want to come back from Dr. Bicknell's office in Chicago, please move back. We love you and we miss you. But Mike, enjoy having Jamie in your practice. Clinical TCs and backpacks. So each clinician and TC has their own backpack. Camera card reader, loops and a headlamp, radio, earpiece, name tag, extra batteries. They carry it from office to office. They're responsible for it. Costs a lot of money, yeah, but so does clinical inefficiency, folks. There's Jamie. Oh, she moved away to Chicago like 4 years ago and works with Dr. Bicknell, and we miss her. But here's Jamie, right? Camera, loops, headlamp, vest. You know why the ladies wear vests? So we don't have to turn the heat up in the clinic. Yes, we provide those for them as well. But loops and headlamps, our assistants wear loops and headlamps. We don't have lights over the chairs because at 6'3", I don't like keep hitting my head on it. You know, this is an important part of a commitment to mechanics and the excellence that we provide clinically. Doctors, by the way, if you are not wearing loops and a headlamp, or at least loops if you have overhead lights, you should be, because you can't see. Trust me. And patients mock me for it. These are my next door neighbors. I love these little girls. They won our selfie contest, right? She is mocking me with my loops on. And her sister, look at her sister. They put me on a t-shirt for my awards that I gave out to patients. And apparently the Dr. Jeff is daring, red, jokes a lot, enthusiastic, fun, and futuristic. I mean, come on. All right. So if your patients can at least appreciate the excellence you're putting into your quality of care and mock you with it, I love it. All right. So why are we over treatment time in the first place? Stop kicking the can down the road, folks. Culture of now. Everybody's got a smartphone. I can find out right now, if I wanted to find something out on my smartphone, I could find out. I could find out where somebody lives. You name it. Who has the most whatever sports thing ever? So shorter treatment times, fewer visits, do everything you can at each visit, same day starts, and I'm going to even talk about same day D-bands and same day starts, folks. If you are not doing this, if you are not doing one-step consults, please learn how to do them. 45 minutes you get with your TC to do ICAT, photos, review of the patient, brief the doctor, doctor and TC go back and review treatment, sign the contract, and they're in the chair to start if they're ready. And Jamie does a great job of talking about all the things that go into leading up to this. OrthoFi is the best at helping you accomplish the work on the front end that needs to be done to do same day starts. It's the clinic that has to do it on the back end and figure out a way to fit it in and make it work. But OrthoFi is really, really valuable in adding to the process of building us up so that patients are ready when they come in for their exam to expect to start braces the same day. Heck, just have some braces ready to go. Have a team member ready to go. Are you, doctor, and your team willing to stay during lunch or at the end of the day to put braces on? Like from a man here, his brother plays in the NFL now. He was a running back at Boston College. And mom's like, look at her. She's like, I'm getting these braces on today. Yes, right now. And we're like, it's lunch. And we've got our scheduling coordinator scheduling while our two assistants are working to get everything done for him. So the culture now, like, why stop at same day starts? This is the heart of clinical efficiency. Do everything you can at each visit. Don't kick the can down the road, and please, 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 please stop retying. No more reties for our profession, ever. I mean, at least if all you're going to do is retie, please at least confirm that the elastics are still correct in the class 2 and there's no interferences and whatever. You get my point. So teamwork makes the dream work. The culture of now. Utilize your team's ability to donate time. Anybody who's sitting in the office that can't make forward progress because they're waiting on your lazy butt, or your butt who's taken too long in the exam, or your butt who's taken too long to put brackets on, should be able to help out somebody else in the clinic. Repair broken brackets, God forsake, when they come in. Don't say, oh, he's here with his 7th broken bracket. We're going to punish him and make him come back another time to do it, because you're just punishing yourself and making another appointment. How about this? You see a bracket that needs repositioning, then repo it. Don't wait. Make it happen right now. Heck, why not turn it into a pan and repo? Because that pan and repo done today in what was a 20 or 30 minute spot saves a 45-minute spot down the road, opens up the clinic. Here's the question. How long, and everybody knows the answer to this, does it take to do a pan and repo at 4:45 on a Friday afternoon? 15 minutes, guaranteed. Now, I'm not saying we're going to schedule all of them on 15 minutes, but there are times where we can make our clinic run like we're trying to get out of here on Friday night for happy hour, okay? So the continual commitment to the culture of now will open a huge amount of time in your future schedule, making it even more possible to take advantage of the culture. And now it's the flywheel. Everything we're talking about here is a flywheel. The more you do, by the way, grit, I define as doing the hard things when it's hard to do them. Do the hard things when it's hard to do them. And guess what? Next time it gets easier. But then don't slack on it. Do the hard things when it's hard to do it and it gets easier. And if you keep doing those hard things, they become easy. And life becomes easy. And the clinic becomes easy. How about this? You got a kid in for 30 minutes for an evaluation and the teeth look really good. Go like this.
Dre, you want to know when you're getting your braces off?
Yeah.
How about today?
Oh.
Is that cool?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
I know it's kind of crazy. I had a dream about me getting my braces off today.
Well, dude, your dream came true.
Oh my God.
All right.
I mean, every patient dreams about getting their braces off today. A couple of clarification points, because I learned this the hard way. Don't ask the patient if he wants his braces off today, and then go tell mom he's going to be here for another 45 minutes. She'd be like, what? We got to get to soccer practice, and I got to pick the other kid up after school. We can't do it. That's how you crush patients. So we go, hey, Steve, I'll be back in just a minute. I got to check on something. You go to mom, go, Mom, he's been crushing it with his rubber bands. Can you stay an extra half an hour so we can get braces off today? Mom be like, yeah. You go back and you go, dude, you want your braces off today? He's like, I've been dreaming about this. All right. You just turned a 30-minute appointment into an hour appointment, but guess what you did? You saved yourself an hour appointment in whatever that opening in your schedule is down the road. Okay. Clinical efficiency. The opening of your future schedule will lighten the daily clinical load, allowing you to see patients back in shorter intervals, which reduces their treatment time and keeps them motivated to participate. So we're going to minimize appointment intervals, and I'm going to try and go through this quick. Think about appointment intervals like a stick shift, okay? You know, not an automatic, but a manual. Doctors often ask me, how long do you wait between changing wires? And I go, well, how long do you wait between changing gears in a car? And they're like, well, that's a stupid question. I go, so is the first one. If you're driving a stick shift, you drive by the seat of your pants, you feel the engine, you know, you feel the acceleration. Are you going downhill, uphill, into the wind, against the wind? Are you racing somebody? You shift at the right time. But we try to cookbook everything and go 10 weeks, 10 weeks, 10 weeks and do this. So if you think about your wire changes based on how long will it take this wire to do what I need it to do to make the next step and schedule on that interval. How long does it really take to get to the next step? We learned this because we made a commitment on every emergency visit we saw, aside from the ones that are like one day after, to find a way to make some progress. And I don't mean like changing a little tiny thing. I mean, if they're 5 weeks in and you said 10 weeks and you can do what you said at 10 weeks in 5, that should change your mindset on how long it takes to get to the next step. The problem is, though, most of us don't have clinical availability to do that because we are mostly clinically inefficient. We're bogged down. Oh yeah, that's great, but there's no room in the schedule. Here's the flywheel effect. The inefficient office says, I got no room in the schedule. If you got no room in the schedule, it's because your office is inefficient. And that's the problem with clinical inefficiency and not doing everything you can at each visit. So now I'm going to go to the admin folks. If I got any non-doctors and mostly admin people on here, every scheduling coordinator in the planet says, but I work in admin. How does clinical efficiency benefit me? Aside from happy patients, here's what I want to tell you. It's the administrative workload. It's simple math. The average treatment time in years times the number of starts that you do per year equals the number of active patients. So if you start 500 patients a year in your practice and your average treatment time is 12 months, then and let's say the practice isn't growing or declining, then every month you're debanding the same percentage of patients and you have 500 active patients. Skipping down, if your average treatment time is 24 months, you have 500 from this year, 500 from last year, you have 1,000 active patients. So taking the national average treatment time of 27 months, and we're at 1,150 active patients. So being more efficient in treatment time means you have less human beings in your practice, in active treatment, to make phone calls, have emergencies, cancel, miss, change, insurance, treatment, phone calls, blah, 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 blah. Excuse me, you get it. So clinical efficiency bogs down your schedule. And then most people go, well, the way I'm more efficient is I just extend appointment intervals. That opens my schedule up, says the clinician who believes more time between visits will lighten up their schedule. And I'm going to look at extended intervals. Okay, so here we go. 2 hypothetical practices. I've changed the number, 300 starts per year. And I've said we're going to use my metric of 12 visits to complete treatment. We're going to keep these constant because the only way to evaluate a variable, by the way, I learned this in my math minor at Syracuse University. The only way to evaluate a variable is to keep other things constant. The more variables you have at the same time, you can't evaluate what is causing the output. So 300 starts, 12 visits to complete treatment. Practice 1 has a 4-week interval. Practice 2 has a 12-week interval. Backwards, I think. Okay. All right. So we're going to go through this twice for each hypothetical. Hypothetical number 1, 300 starts per year, 12 visits. Those are staying constant. If we have a 4-week interval and we do 12 visits every 4 weeks, that's 48 weeks to finish treatment, which is about a year. Let's call it a year. In 1 year, this practice does 300 starts. So this practice has 300 active patients. 300 active patients seen every 4 weeks is 75 active patients a week, patients per week. 75 active visits per week divided by, to make it easy, 3 days a week. That's all you got to see patients is 3 days a week. And you will see 25 active appointments a day, not including new patient exams, recalls, and retention. So listen, a 300 start a year practice could see 25 clinical patients a day if they did 12 visits on average. See why that's my goal? All right. But now we're going to do the math again. 12 visits to complete treatment times 4 weeks per visit. Now let's go to our math. Numerator, denominator, visit, cross them out, and it equals weeks. 12 visits to complete treatment times 4 weeks per visit is 48 weeks. That's your treatment time, which is about a year, approximately 52. 1 year of treatment times 300 starts per year is 300 active patients, patients that are actively in treatment, not in recall or not in retention. 300 patients that need to be seen every 4 weeks, because that's your interval, means you need to see 75 patients every week of 4 weeks. 300 divided by 4 is 75. 75 patients per week divided by only 3 patient days per week is 25 patients per day. Got it? Now we're going to go to hypothetical number 2. Same things, 300 starts per year, 12 visits to complete treatment. Let's just, for exaggeration, say we're going to do a 12-week interval. So 12-week interval times 12 visits is 144 weeks to finish treatment. 144 weeks divided by 52 weeks in a year is 2 years, 9 months to finish treatment, which is 2.75 years, 300 starts. You now have 830 active patients, 830. 830 divided by 12 weeks as an interval is 75 active appointments per week. Divided by 3 days a week is 25 active patients per day. We're going to run this math again. 12 times 12 is 144 weeks. So that means your treatment time is 2 years and 9 months, which is 33 months. And you're still efficient because you're at 12 visits. Divide 33 months by 52 weeks per year, 144 weeks is 2.75 years, times 300 starts per year is 825 active patients, right? Because you have 300 in year 1, 300 in year 2, and then 225 in the other part of year 3. But if you divide 825 by the 12-week interval, that's only 75 patients per week, which is 25 patients per day on a 3-day-a-week office. Cheers to that. That just proved that extending intervals from 4 to 12 weeks only lengthens treatment time and doesn't mean you see fewer patients per day. If you didn't get that, go back and rewatch this recording because I'm not reviewing it again. Administrative load. Here's the deal. 1 year of treatment time is happy patients, 33 months, not so happy. 300 active patients, happy administrative team, 830 active patients, stressed administrative team. Your overhead is too damn high because your treatment time is too damn long. And so I'm going to argue it's the same number of patients per day, but Office 1 has a lower overhead because they need one less scheduling coordinator. Plain and simple. That's why key metric number 1 is so important, the number of visits. 12 visits to complete treatment is my goal. Now I'm going to reverse engineer this. Remember I said this was only a 3-day-a-week practice? 3 days a week times 50 weeks a year, maybe you take more vacation, I don't know, but 150 days a year. From the very beginning, I said, if you don't know how many days a year you work, you should. So 150 days a year, 300 starts per year, divided by 150 days per year is 2 starts per day. Remember my key metric number 2 is starts per day? 2 starts per day times 12 visits per start, or visits to complete treatment, is 24 visits per day. Guess what 24 visits per day equals? The numbers we said here, 25. Close enough. So I can tell literally by looking at a practice how many starts they do a year and how many days they work and how many patients they see a day. I can reverse engineer it to how many appointments it takes them to finish treatment, period. So by now you should know that the number 1 key metric in orthodontics for the throughput, how much work you have to do is starts per day. And that's why clinical efficiency all starts with this key metric number 1, which is the number of visits. So I'm going to finish up with my hypothesis because I'd like to think that our profession is doing better than it currently is. If the industry average is 24 months for estimate and actual is 27, I find it hard to believe that we orthodontists as a group are not delivering on our mechanics. Maybe some of us could. Maybe we're not failing on motivation, but maybe there's another hypothesis out there. And it may be that some of us are keeping our patients in braces, literally holding them hostage until their financial obligation is met. So doctor, I'm going to ask you, if you have a practice that doesn't take braces off patients who could be done or are done or are slow playing treatment mechanics because they're financed over 30 months, but the treatment could be done in 18, are we holding our patients hostage? I have to believe that we could be doing better as a profession in 27 months. Which brings me back to the origin story of OrthoFi. Over a cocktail, on a cocktail napkin, question Jamie and I got ad nauseum, shorter treatment times, how will patients pay? I think we as a group of orthodontists in the United States need to answer this question. With treatment times reducing, how will your patients afford to pay for treatment? And I think we should decouple treatment times and finances. Let's be the best we can for every patient. Let's be the best part of every patient's day. Let's be the best we can and have the shortest treatment times with the best results. And you, the orthodontist, can focus on this treatment through mechanics and motivation. And it makes it even easier for us to do that in my practice because we allow OrthoFi to focus on the finances. They're going to make sure that what we are paid to do is taken care of while we focus on what we are trained to do, which is to provide great results for our patients. That is the origin story of OrthoFi. And we now conclude what would normally be a day-long course on the business of orthodontics. And I want to thank every one of you for attending and listening. And I want to thank in advance every one of you for going back to your practices and making changes, blocking and tackling, as Jamie calls it, tracking the metrics that you use, doing better for your patients, and making this world a better place. So with that, I say thank you.